When you hear the term underrated, what goes through your mind? Is it a story that is underwatched or underrated? Because despite how the answer seems obvious, a lot of people don't seem to understand what the word really means. For example, when I asked my initial question, what type of anime went through your mind? Is this something like Link, the new Monogatari series? Or is the more obscure show like Space Dandy? Or even the Move Red Line? You know, despite these shows not having giant audiences following them, they are still relatively well rated, and in some cases a bit overrated. Well, my definition to the word, it is a story that is objectively well written, but gets low ratings because people don't seem to understand its high quality. A bit of an overstretch, but you get the general concept. The reason I took this time to define underrated as a term is because in my life I've never been more offended by a score so low given to a show that I've loved so much. It's gotten to the point where I'm genuinely furious to see no one giving it the true praise it deserves. How is it that the best anime of 2024 has already came out and no one has mentioned it online? It is baffling. I know I'm slightly overreacting, but trust me, this show is worth it. I want you to sit down and get ready with me as I spend the next few minutes trying to put into words why I love this show. Oblivion Battery is a sports anime that lies to you with its prologue. It starts with a very realistic and harsh depiction of playing a baseball match. Its direction depicts a very intimate experience of matching against an extremely strong team. Everything from the environment, mood and atmosphere was shown in a way that just elevates this losing sequence. Then the prologue ends, and it does a complete 180 as it transforms into a relatively decent comedy show. You might think this is a bad thing. Let me tell you, it isn't. As a matter of fact, the comedy is what made the balance between serious and unserious moments feel rewarding. This might be confusing, but that's exactly how the show feels. In my opinion, it is the perfect show to binge in one sitting. The characters are unique. If we ignore the fact that each character has to have a different hair color in order to make their designs unique, and look past their contrasting personalities, more on that later, we find very well written people who are relatable in more than one way. They play off each other really well and their interaction never feels lazy or repetitive. The focus of this show is of course Kaname, our main character, as he's recovering from amnesia. But I promise every episode follows the team rather than him. Again, I know this is confusing, but to put it simply, the show doesn't necessarily have an MC, and instead follows our disbanded characters as they unite to create a baseball team in a public school that will hopefully go to Koshien. The comedy is really one of the best I've seen in all of anime. It was absolutely hilarious, and the delivery from voice actors Yuki Kaji and Miyano Mamoru were phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, Mamoru Miyano, I don't know how to pronounce his name, has delivered the best voice acting performance so far, at least for 2024, and I don't think anyone can come close to him. I'm sure that it's due to the writing of the manga itself, but he took the goofy, cringy and unfunny personality of Kei to another level. I'm honestly mesmerized by his work. Going back to the comedy, the very different personalities, yes, foreshadowing, are what makes the joke land every single time, and at some point hit a home run, pun intended. Kei's forgetful state and out-of-pocket statements are something else, man. Like for example, when he references Marilyn Monroe, but he does it in his own way. The references made to other TV shows was a moment that made the show even better, and I would let you discover them by yourself. Now, what about the focus on baseball as a sport? Well, it's a bit confusing. Despite the show being a sports anime, I mean, who would have guessed, the focus was more on the characters reacting to match challenges. It sounds stupid when I say it, but believe me, that's exactly how the plot plays. This is largely because the season was entirely based on developing the initial stage of the story. Therefore, we never really had any official matches with real stakes. Luckily, the show was really successful in Japan, and the official Nihongo account on Twitter always had thousands of people viewing the weekly posts. Now, it is a shame that sports anime don't get the popularity that battle shonen have. They are, most of the time, famous in Japan. And this can be seen in the success of the first Slam movie, where it generated over 66% of its revenue from domestic tickets, and the rest was from the international release. Back to the sport itself, you don't necessarily have to know anything about baseball before watching Oblivion Battery. That's how I got into the show. The only baseball related media that I watched prior to the anime was Moneyball, and there I did not understand a single technical term. That's the problem with baseball, it's kind of like a science itself. It is a bit hard to get into, but I guarantee you, if you watch a 5 to 10 minute video describing the main rules of the game, you'll understand 95% of what's happening, and you'll be able to pick up on the remaining 5% by yourself. Now, let's take a quick tangent that I promise will make sense in a bit. What made the first Slam Dunk movie so special? Is it the banger song, the amazing direction, which was, by the way, the debut of the author of the manga? I don't know how he did it, but he's just a genius. Or was it the personal story of Ryota, the main character of the movie? If you said any of the three, you're only partially right. The real reason was the fantastic CG animation. The team behind the movie actually used mocap suits in order to convey realistic movements that players make during their game. That camera shot of the Sano team walking at the end of the movie is the perfect example of real walking, not the average static movements of anime. I'm not dissing animators, but it's hard to draw the tiny details that we subconsciously make as we are walking. Now look at this shot and tell me it's not the same. I left the cinema wishing that sports anime adopted the slam dunk mocap technique, and Boukyaku Battery did not disappoint. My god, every single moment that our characters make is probably rotoscoped or animated perfectly to replicate how we play in sports. I just wanted to highlight this real quick. Now for the real reason I'm making this video in the first place. Episodes 6 and 11 were some of the most relatable episodes I've watched in a very long time. It's nothing like Villain Saga and Thorfinn's journey to becoming a pacifist. I'm not saying that the motivation is bad, no, nor am I dissing Villain Saga. It is my favorite anime of all time. I'm just trying to say that everyone wants to do good in their life, and that's why it is easy to have a relatively general motive that people can relate with. But in Oblivion Battery, the characters themselves are going through a very specific and tragic experience that athletes deal with. Real depression stemming from the fact that you have to give up on your dream because you either get a very severe injury or the competition is so strong that you don't bother chasing after it anymore. I saw myself in the place of these characters and I knew their pain because that's what I went through, but now I have recovered. Back to the point, I cry, not tear up, I literally sob every single time I watch episode 6 and 11. The direction, storyboards, animation, voice acting and music were perfected down to the last minute detail. This is prevalent in every single episode. The art direction approach was fresh and unique with really detailed background and extremely creative storyboards. Minor spoilers for the next few seconds. Skip to this timestamp to avoid them. But the way that Todo had to watch his seniors literally bawl is like a knife piercing my heart. Whichever voice actor performed that crying scene, take the goddamn Oscar. You deserve it. Then, Chihaya's episode was phenomenally directed and beautifully structured in a way that was able to masterfully show us how he got over his jealousy wall. That soundtrack that plays when he's laying on his bed is a masterpiece, and it is the one that I used at the beginning of the video. In the end, Oblivion Battery is not a show about comedy or baseball. It is more than that. It's about how athletes constantly battle on never-ending challenges. It covers the most important aspect an athlete must have, mental strength. It is a tale on how to overcome your problems, no matter how small or large. Everything can be fixed. If you are a person who has contemplated the sports dream, give this show a go. I promise it will not disappoint. But aside from that, I want to thank everyone for giving me your time. This video has been long in the making. I've drafted some of the script whilst I was in the shower and kept the most important details that I want to discuss later. Yes, this was the first video that I've scripted, so it's no wonder it took longer for me to upload. However, I will continue this process because it allows me to write down my feelings and word them in a way that might be relatable to you. That being said, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Free Palestine. Goodbye.